Close your eyes for a moment and imagine two students, both are intelligent, both study hard, both have big dreams, but one gets a better job only because he speaks better English. The other student, even after working hard, is left behind. Now think carefully. Is this really about talent or is it about language? This is where our topic begins. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Political Science with Ravi. Today I'm going to explain something very important but in a very simple and different way. The language war in Indian politics. And don't worry, even if you have never studied this topic before, you will understand everything clearly. Why does language create conflict in India? Let us think about India for a moment. India is a country of many languages. Hundreds of languages, thousands of dialectic. Now imagine this situation. People from different region, different culture, different languages, all living in one country. Do you think everyone will agree on one language easily? Some people want a common language to connect the country. But at the same time, people also want to protect their own language. Because for them, language is not just a medium of communication. It is a part of their culture, their history, their identity. So here the problem begins. One side wants unity, another side wants identity. And when these two ideas clash, conflict starts. What is language war? Now, let us understand the term. What is a language war? First, don't misunderstand the word war. It is not a war with weapon. It is a conflict between people based on language. In simple terms, when different groups feel their language is being ignored, replaced or dominated, conflict begins. In India, this happened mainly in two ways. First, conflict between Hindi versus regional languages like Tamil, Bengali, Telugu. Some people support Hindi as a common national language, but others feel that their own language is equally important and should not be dominated. Second, English versus Indian languages. English is often linked with education, jobs and success. So people who know English get more opportunities and those who don't often feel left behind. So when we say language war, we are talking about this kinds of tension that exists in society. And to understand this better, we now need to look at where this problem actually started. Origin of the problem. Now, let us go back in history to understand where this problem actually began. Before independence, India was under British rule, and during this time, a very important decision was taken. In 1835, Lord William Bentinck, based on the recommendation of Thomas Babington Macaulay, introduced English as the main language of administration and education in India. At first, this may look like a big change, but slowly it transformed Indian society. Think about it. If you knew English, you could get government job, enter administration and move closer to power. But if you did not know English, you were automatically left behind. So gradually a divide was created. On one side, people who knew English, on the other side, people who did not. And this was not just a language gap. It became a gap of power and status. But at the same time, something else was happening. Across different regions of India, people began to rediscover their own languages. Tamil became power or proud of Tamil, Bengalis of Bengali, Telugus of Telugu. So language slowly became a symbol of identity. This gave rise to linguistic identity movement. People started saying our language is our culture. Our language is who we are. So now two powerful forces were growing together. One, English as a language of power. Two, regional languages as a symbol of identity. And when power and identity move on different direction, conflict become inhabitable. After independence, leader of India understood this tension. To address it, they made a promise. State would be reorganized on the basis of language. This led to the creation of linguistic state. It was an attempt to balance unity and diversity, power with identity, and this is where the real roots of language conflict in India began. Constitutional compromise. Now imagine this moment. India has just become independent. The British are gone. But inside a big hall, the leaders of India are facing a new question. What should be the language of our country? The rooms slowly divide. On one side, some leaders say, we are free now. Why should we continue English? Leaders like Seth Gobind Das and Purushottam Das Tandon support Hindi. For them, Hindi is not just a language. It is the identity of a free India. But from the other side, a different concern rises. Leaders like Minna Mazini and T.T. Krishnamachari ask, what about those who don't speak Hindi? They fear that forcing one language may ignore many others. Now the situation becomes tense. One side wants unity through Hindi. The other wants respect for all languages. And when both sides are strong, you cannot ignore either. So a solution was found. A constitutional compromise. It was like a careful deal. First, Hindi was declared the official language of India. Second, English was allowed to continue for the next 15 years so that the system does not suddenly collapse. And third, an important promise was made. No one would be forced to use Hindi. Non-Hindi speaking state would be protected. So this compromise tried to balance unity and diversity. But the fear did not disappear completely. People were still worried about their language, their identity, their recognition. And soon, this concern moved from the discussion rooms to the street. The first turning point in the history of language war, the creation of Andhra Pradesh. Now, let me tell you a story of one man whose sacrifice changed Indian politics forever. His name was Potti Sri Ramalu. He was not a powerful leader, not a minister, just a common man with a strong belief. He believed that Telugu-speaking people deserve their own state, a place where their language and identity would be respected. But the government did not take this demand seriously at first. So what did he do? He decided to go on a first unto death. Not for one day, not for a week, but until his demand was accepted. Days passed, then weeks passed. His health started failing. People became anxious, but he did not stop. After 58 days of fasting, Pottu Sri Ramalu died. And that moment shocked the entire country. People came out on the street. There were protests, anger, and emotional outbursts. Now the government could not ignore this anymore. Finally, in 1953, a new state was created. Andhra Pradesh, the first state formed on the basis of language. And this changed everything. And after this, the government realized something very important. Language is not just an identity. It is power, it is an emotion of the people. Soon after, in 1956, many other states were reorganized based on languages. So this was the moment when language became a real political force in India. The Indian Reorganization Act of 1956. Look at this image carefully. On the left, you see India before 1956. And on the other right, India after 1956. At first, it may look like just a map, but this is actually a story of change. Before 1956, Indian states were not properly organized. They were based on old British provinces, princely states, and administrative convenience, not on languages. So, what was the problem? People were living in states where their languages were not fully represented. Imagine this. You speak one language, but your state runs into another. Would you feel connected? This created confusion, dissatisfaction, and growing demands. Now, remember what happened in 1953, which we have discussed in the previous slide. After the sacrifice of Pottu Sri Ramalu, the government realized something important. Language cannot be ignored. So in 1956, a major decision was taken. The Indian Reorganization Act was introduced. And everything changed. Now look again at the map. States were redrawn not randomly but based on language. Telugu speaker got Andhra Pradesh. Kannada speaker got Mysore, now it's Karnataka. Malayalam speaker got Kerala. And many other states were reorganized in a similar way. For the first time, people felt that their language, their culture, their identity had a place in the political map of India. But this change had a deeper impact. It strengthened regional identity. People started feeling more connected to their state. At the same time, it also made language a powerful political factor. Political impact on language. Now, let's understand the political impact of this situation. In the 1960s, especially in South India, people started feeling a strong fear that Hindi might be imposed on them, that their own language might lose importance. So because of this fear, large protests began. Students came out on the street. There was anger, resistance, in some places even violence. But this was not just a protest. This was the turning point because now language entered politics. People started supporting leaders who spoke for their language and identity. This led to the rise of regional parties like DMK, Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam. These parties clearly said, we will protect your language, and people trusted them. At the same time, the Indian National Congress, which was very strong before, started losing support in the south because people felt their concerns were not being understood by the Indian National Congress. And from this point, language was no longer just a culture. It became an electoral tool. Political parties realized if you connect with people's language, you connect their identity. And if you connect with their identity, you win their vote. So in India, language is not just spoken. It shapes politics, it influences elections, and it defines who will be in power. Government response. Official Language Act of 1963 and 1967. So after all this protest and political changes, the government could not stay silent. They had to take a clear decision. So finally, through the Official Language Act of 1963 and later in 1967, a solution was introduced. Let's understand it simply. First, English would continue not just for 15 years, but for as long as needed. This removed a major fear. Second, Hindi would not be forced on any state. No one would be pressurized to give up their own language. In simple words, the government was saying, we will not impose, we will accommodate, we will cooperate. And because of this, tension started reducing. People felt a bit more secure. The situation became more stable and more calm. Present scenario. Now, let's understand the present scenario of language politics in India. First, English. English is still remains a dominant language in India. It is widely used in education, business, and technology. In a diverse country like India, English also acts as a common link language, connecting people from different regions. Now, coming to Hindi. Hindi is expanding through media administration and daily communication, but it is not accepted everywhere. In many regions, especially South India and the Northeast, people resist it because language is closely tied to their identity. And finally, regional languages remain very strong. They are deeply connected to culture, history, and emotion. India officially recognized 22 languages, and according to the census, there are thousands of languages and dialects spoken across the country. So this clearly shows how diverse India really is. So today, India is balancing between English as opportunity, Hindi as unity, regional languages as identity, and that is why language in India is not just a communication. It is power, politics, and identity. Conclusion. So after understanding the history, conflict, and present scenario, one thing becomes very clear. Language in India is not just a tool of communication. It is deeply connected to our identity, culture, and emotions. In fact, language often becomes a battleground of politics. Different groups try to protect their language because they are actually protecting their identity and their existence. But at the same time, India is not divided by languages. It is united through diversity. We speak different languages. We follow different cultures. But we still share one identity, India. And that is why our diversity is not our weakness. It is our greatest strength. In this regard, I remember one line, Sare jana se acha Hindustan hamara. Thank you for watching this video. Jai Hind.